Do I have crusties? I'm gonna try to do this video really quick because we're in the middle of an ice storm and the lights have been flickering and I don't know if I'm gonna make it. We'll see. We'll see.
This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
So this week on the YA Rebels, we're giving you our revision tips, and I've got 3 for you. There may be more than 3. I don't know. I can't be tied down to any specific outline or guide. I just can't. You know those people that are just so in love with themselves that everything comes back to them, they've done it all, know it all that. I think there's a little bit of that in all of us in terms of our writing. It's like we've put this out there and it's like the best thing ever and we love it. And that enthusiasm is awesome until you get to the revision stage. Revision really is what sorts out the hobbyists from the people who are serious. All right, so the first thing is that you need to go back through and fix all the shortcuts. Now, what's a shortcut? A shortcut is those things that we as writers do to get us from one section to the next if we have no idea what we're going to do or put in there. So sometimes there'll be gaps in it that basically say something awesome happens here, or this needs to happen here, but I couldn't find the words to put there. And you need to fix it. Fill in that hole with whatever. It can be shitty words, it can be bad sentences, but you need to fill in those holes so that you know exactly what's going to happen from place to place. And so that's like the first thing that I do, at least when I start a revision, is make sure that everything is filled and that we have a specific order to all the scenes, that they kind of work. And then the next thing I look at is continuity and making sure that things make sense. And so that's going to involve reading through, unless you don't have the time for it, which is bad. I hate to say this, but I don't read my manuscripts. I don't read them. After the first time I go through there, I know exactly where everything is, but I have a fairly good memory. And so I don't really reread. I don't read them. I read things in small batches. I read things by scene to make sure that things work, and then I go over them like that. But I would suggest that most people should reread what they've done and go through it like that and make sure that it makes sense. And look at it critically. Don't look at it like a douchebag, you know, and say everything is perfect. This is great. I think it's the next Twilight, Hunger Games, City of Bones, whatever. Because if you think it's that, you're wrong. You're just wrong. At this point, you need to fix it. So what I like to do next is divide and conquer. And that is, I break it up into some manageable bits, either by scene or by chapters or a set amount of chapters. And I focus on doing that amount of chapters, like 3 per day. And really focusing on working through the problems in each of those chapters and finding out if there are new problems that arise out of those chapters and always making a note of them. So I have a running tally of everything that I have to do to fix the book. Now, the next piece, after you've gotten everything sort of figured out and you think everything is right, then you start doing the micro work. So that's like all the macro stuff. Those are the big picture pieces. But then you have to go in at a basic writing level and fix it up. And that's what I call polishing the turd. Because I really don't have a lot of love for my work. I love writing, but after I finished writing it, I look at it more like it's more like a craft thing at that point, and trying to fix it and make sure things sound good. And this is the point where I will probably read lots of shit aloud. Read it all aloud just to make sure it sounds right coming out and it flows easily. There's a certain cadence to words where if you can read it aloud in a constant stream and you feel like it's the right voice, then your reader will be able to pick up on those same things. Read your work aloud, see if it sounds right, or if it sounds right to you, or read it to someone else and see if it sounds right to them. Because sometimes unless you can inflect the kind of personality of your narrator into your verbalization of it, it may not sound particularly good. You might want to have someone else read it to you and see if it sounds right. So yeah, you're going to go in and you're going to look at each of the sentences, how if you've used some lazy writing, which would be like crappy verbs or like passive voice, Crappy verbs would be things like she ran across the street. You know, it's just words that are just like, you know. They don't make it. And add-ons, dudes, I don't know what you need to do. Just make it, you can tighten up writing without making it sound boring. Tightening up writing does not necessarily mean using shorter words. It means using the right word. And so you're going to need like a synonym finder, a thesaurus. I love a synonym finder. Anyway, I'm just going to throw all this shit out there and see what sticks for you guys. I have to reiterate what Gretchen said on Monday. Rennie Brown, and there's another author, Self-Editing for Fiction Writers is a really good resource for people. And it really gets you to tune in on what kind of problems you make on an ongoing basis, what kind of problems you make for yourself as you're writing so that you have to end up fixing everything. And it's a really good resource. It's getting more and more important to catch all your grammar stuff, but that's really the really fine detail things that you need to look at. That's for the last stage of your revision. It's not the biggest issue. I know a lot of writers and aspiring writers who, you know, end up doing a first draft or a second draft, and then they're like, oh, I've got to really focus on where to put this comma. And it's like, no, you really got to focus on the fact that the story is really boring. You know, I mean, take a good look at your work. Does something read as boring? You know what? If you think it's boring, it needs to go, because the reader's going to think it's worse than you think it is. That's the thing. It's always going to be worse when it's read by someone else than it is when you read it. So, yeah, that's it. It's scary. Revisions are horrible, but you got to do them. You have to do them. You have to do them a lot. A lot. You don't have to love them. You just have to do them. And that's it. That's all I've got for you.